Tonight, one of the most important speeches of Joe Biden's career as the president delivers an election year State of the Union, the economy, the border, and the other topics he'll cover as the president aims to convince America he's fit for a second term in office. The CBS Evening News starts now. Good evening, I'm Norah O'Donnell, and thank you for being with us. President Biden is about to leave the White House to head to Capitol Hill to deliver a critical address to the nation before what may be the largest TV audience he'll get this election season. It is a chance for the commander-in-chief to reframe the political debate about not only the state of this country, but also his stewardship of it. Earlier today, I went to the White House for a conversation with the president about what he'll talk about. He is eager to engage politically with Republicans. CBS's Ed O'Keefe is at the White House, and Ed, the president tonight will use the phrase America's comeback.
That's right, Nora, and as he engages with Republicans, he plans to call out how they've lost elections for supporting the repeal of Roe versus Wade and promise to sign a federal law protecting access to abortion services if it's ever passed. The president's also planning to take at least a few jabs at his likely Republican opponent, Donald Trump. President Biden has spent the past year touting a strong economy.
Wages are up more than prices. Unemployment has reached historic lows.
But polls show most voters aren't feeling it. Inflation, though down in recent months, has soared on his watch. Tonight, he'll use his State of the Union to push Congress to cap out-of-pocket drug costs at $2,000 a year for Americans with private health insurance, and to restore the expanded child tax credit for low- and middle-income families. The president also plans to touch on immigration, an area where he's vulnerable and under constant attack by former President Donald Trump.
Let there be no doubt this is Joe Biden's invasion.
The number of migrant crossings spiked to more than 2.4 million in the last fiscal year, compared to under 1 million at a similar point in the Trump presidency. Biden's own allies have criticized his handling of the Israel-Hamas war and the rising death toll in Gaza. Thousands voted against him for that reason in recent Democratic primaries. Tonight, the president will announce the U.S. military is set to build a temporary port along the coast of Gaza to help deliver humanitarian aid. White House officials say the president's also expected to draw contrast with Trump, especially on the subject of reproductive rights, with IVF patients and fertility doctors expected in the audience. Since the repeal of Roe v. Wade, 13 more states have approved complete bans on abortion services.
Stop playing politics with a woman's lives and freedom. Let doctors do their job.
Kate Cox, who was blocked by the Texas Supreme Court from terminating a non-viable pregnancy, is scheduled to be in the First Lady's box. With the president's age a major concern for voters, his performance tonight will be closely watched.
We can all see Joe Biden's weakness.
Trump's super PAC released this blistering ad this morning, timed to tonight's speech. And with hundreds of Trump allies in the House chamber tonight, Speaker Mike Johnson told CBS Mornings he advised his members to be professional.
We've been trying to turn the temperature down here.
Now, according to excerpts of the speech, the president will include a riff on his age and Trump's. He'll say his long public life has taught him to embrace themes like freedom and democracy. Some other people my age, he'll say, embrace themes like resentment, revenge, and retribution. A way of reminding voters his opponent is also an old guy. Nora?
Ed O'Keefe, thanks very much. Our coverage of the president's State of the Union address and the Republican response will begin tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, and we'll see you then. Now to this breaking news, tense moments in the sky over California today after a tire flew off a plane just as it lifted off the ground in San Francisco. The Boeing 777 with 249 people on board diverted to Los Angeles. CBS's Jonathan Vigliotti shows us the terrifying video.
Just after United Flight 35 took off, a camera captured the moment one of the plane's rear tires fell off.
Yes, there's a tire going down the runway.
No fire, no sparks, but a back left wheel crashed into a parked car that was empty at the time.
We had to close the runway because somebody lost a tire.
The Boeing plane departed San Francisco International Airport at 11:23 this morning and was headed to Osaka, Japan, but was rerouted to Los Angeles. While Boeing has been under investigation since January after a new Alaska Airlines plane lost a door plug mid-flight, this United plane has been in service for more than 20 years.
I know people are going to look at this and say, oh my goodness, this is another Boeing problem. I highly suspect it has anything to do with the manufacturing or design of the airplane by Boeing.
On a separate United flight Monday, a Boeing 737's engine caught fire after bubble wrap was sucked into the engine during its flight to Fort Myers. It was diverted safely back to Houston. Today's flight landed safely in Los Angeles. And an airport employee did sustain minor injuries while responding to the debris field. Tonight, the FAA is investigating. They're going to look into the maintenance records for that landing gear, Nora.
Jonathan Vigliotti, thanks so much. Well, tonight we're learning about a disturbing story of an active duty soldier with top secret security clearance. He is accused of selling American military secrets to China. The new indictment claims the sergeant was recruited and that some of the documents are related to U.S. weapons systems. CBS' David Martin reports on a story straight out of a spy movie.
Sergeant Corbin Schultz, an intelligence analyst with the 101st Airborne Division, allegedly told his Chinese handler,
We gotta move.
he wished he could be Jason Bourne, the daredevil spy played by Matt Damon. But he ended up on this poster.
The defendant is charged with entering into a multi-year conspiracy to illegally exploit his access to national defense information for his own financial benefit.
According to the 25-page indictment, Schultz received 14 payments totaling $42,000 from a Chinese agent for handing over sensitive technical data and tactical information about the F-22 stealth fighter, the Army's newest combat rescue helicopter, and intercontinental ballistic missiles. Schultz is also accused of selling information about the HIMARS long-range rocket system, which the U.S. has given Ukraine to fight off the Russian invasion. He did it online from Fort Campbell, Kentucky, pretending the money was for customizing a car.
He traded our national defense information for cash.
When the Chinese agent promised to pay extra for more highly classified documents, Schultz responded, I hope so. I need to get my other BMW back. Schultz is the fourth serviceman in the past 8 months to be arrested for compromising sensitive information. He is scheduled to make his first court appearance tomorrow. Nora?
Military secrets for $42,000. David Martin, thank you. Tonight, there is outrage in Uvalde, Texas, after a new city council report cleared the Uvalde police of wrongdoing after that school shooting that left 19 children and 2 teachers dead. Just a reminder, it took police an hour and 17 minutes to confront the gunman. CBS's Omar Villafranca has the family's emotional reactions.
How dare you?
Today, anger over accountability. Nearly 2 years since the massacre at Uvalde's Robb Elementary, tempers flared after the latest report on the Uvalde Police Department's response during the school shooting.
My son's birthday is on Tuesday. You know how I'm going to celebrate that? At the cemetery. I should not be doing that.
For the first time today, the community and the city council heard the findings of a months-long independent investigation requested by the city. Former police detective Jesse Prado led the investigation.
All of the officers, Lieutenant Martinez, his actions I found were in good faith.
He concluded that many officers in the school that day acted in good faith and did not violate policy in their reaction to the shooting. He said the officers didn't have the proper training that day or the tools, like a rifle-rated shield, to overtake the gunman.
How do you go to bed at night?
Parents were outraged, saying the officers put their safety first.
They stood there 77 minutes and waited after they got call after call that kids were still alive in there.
The Uvalde police internal investigation is ongoing, but none of the roughly 24 officers that responded have been terminated.
You fire those officers, you fire them, and you do so with your head held high because you know that that is the right thing to do.
Today, some of the members of the council expressed their outrage over that report. Now, earlier this year, the DOJ released their own scathing report on the entire response to the massacre, finding fault with the officers' inaction and the lack of communication. Nora?
All right, Omar Villafranca, thank you so much. Tonight, 2 of Alabama's in vitro fertilization clinics are resuming treatments after a new law signed by Republican Governor Kay Ivey. Nearly half the state's IVF clinics had paused procedures after a controversial state Supreme Court ruling that gave embryos the same legal rights as children. CBS's Janet Shamlian reports some don't believe this new law goes far enough.
A champagne toast at Birmingham's Alabama fertility.
Cheers to more Alabama babies.
Celebrating the return of IVF.
Great news came yesterday. We are ready to proceed.
3 embryo transfers were performed here today, just hours after the new law was passed.
What was it like seeing patients today?
Incredibly exciting. Patients, we were able to talk about IVF care. We were able to timeline. Lots of smiles, lots of hope and optimism.
It comes after bills were rushed through the legislature, shielding clinics from criminal liability after the state Supreme Court's controversial ruling that embryos are children.
Senate Bill 159, the Senate concurs.
The court's decision led to nearly half of Alabama's providers pausing IVF treatments. The clinic that was the subject of the suit telling CBS News tonight it won't reopen until it has more clarification on the law.
We're hopeful and we're excited.
Cody Conley's embryo transfer was canceled. They have a toddler through IVF and want to grow their family.
When do you think your embryo transfer will happen now?
We are hopeful that that transfer will actually be able to take place at the end of March or the 1st of April.
But reproductive rights advocates say the law is just a fast fix, likely to be challenged because it doesn't directly address the court's ruling.
Does the Alabama legislation go far enough?
No, the Alabama law does not go far enough.
In Washington, Democratic Senator Tammy Duckworth introduced a bill to give federal protection to IVF. She had both her daughters via the procedure and wants it available for everyone.
It does not address the issue of, is a fertilized egg a human being, an extrauterine child, in the words of the Alabama Supreme Court, with equal or even greater rights than the person who's going to carry it? It doesn't address that issue.
And while the mood was celebratory here, the director of Alabama Fertility told me as long as that state Supreme Court ruling stands, there will be a shadow over their shoulder and IVF care will be under threat. Nora.
Such an important story for so many. Janet Shamlian, thank you. Tonight, we're shining a light on the nationwide shortage of medications to treat ADHD. These drugs can be crucial for millions who have trouble paying attention and staying focused. In tonight's Health Watch, CBS's Mark Strassman has one family's story.
Try it from right here.
For Kristen Coronado, finding the ADHD drugs her son Dom needs is like a series of long shots, mostly misses.
I'm a mother looking for my son's medication. I'm not a drug dealer. That's how they make you feel. I tried another pharmacy, and that led to like pharmacy to pharmacy to pharmacy.
You're on your own.
You're on your own. Deal with it.
6-year-old Dom takes a generic version of a drug called Focalin XR made by Lynette. Like other ADHD drugs, it contains a controlled substance, tightly regulated by the Drug Enforcement Administration, or DEA. America's drug makers claim they're manufacturing all they can, but patients and doctors' offices have to keep pharmacy shopping to find it.
As soon as they're without medication, you see a return of untreated ADHD symptoms.
And it can get dark or even dire quickly.
They take an action that can harm them or even take their lives.
So this is the spreadsheet I made.
Coronado calls all 25 local pharmacies on this list.
Hi, I'm calling to see if my son's prescription is ready.
This call, another miss.
Not ready yet.
And Dom's monthly dose is running out.
What keeps you up at night thinking about all this?
Tomorrow I have to count the pills that I have left, see what day that ends on, and then start the process all over again.
Drug makers say the DEA needs to release more of the controlled substance. The DEA counters that drug makers have yet to use up their supply. Lynette and the DEA both had no comment to CBS News. Caught in the middle, kids like Dom.
It has to be addressed. These children, these families deserve better.
Good news. Kristen Coronado's finally tracked down a refill. Dom's all set, at least for another month. Mark Strassman, CBS News, Redwood City, California.
What a story. Heart of America is next with an American woman who's setting records on the high seas.
This portion of the CBS Evening News is sponsored by Freshpet. It's not dog food, it's food food.
Finally, tonight's Heart of America. Meet 29-year-old Cole Brower from Long Island, New York. She just became the first American woman to sail solo nonstop around the world. Early this morning, Brower arrived in Spain, completing one of the most extreme and difficult sporting events on Earth, the Global Solo Challenge. Less than 200 people have ever managed to finish it, but that didn't deter Brower. Despite suffering bruised ribs when a massive wave slammed her boat and severe dehydration that required an IV, she continued on. After 30,000 miles and more than 4 months alone on the high seas, Brower is back on dry land where she was greeted by family, friends, hugs, and yes, some champagne. Congratulations to Cole Brower, tonight's Heart of America. And that's tonight's CBS Evening News. I'm Norah O'Donnell in Washington. Stay tuned for complete coverage and analysis of the president's State of the Union address and the Republican response. That's coming up next.